Well, oh, we're live, everybody. Good afternoon, world. This is Zoe Bywater from Belvoir, and I'm pleased to say hi to Fraser Edward Cleves again. We last spoke in August last year, which seems to have flown by. I don't know about you, Fraser.
I know. I can't believe it's been that long, but it feels like so much has happened in that time, but it's gone in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, and obviously the reason today for catching up with you, Fraser, is there's obviously a lot going on in the news, and especially in the industry news, about rent arrears. And I think it's probably an opportune time to sort of bring this subject up again for landlords, because there's a lot of things in the pipeline that may well affect obviously the situation for landlords at present. So obviously what I was going to try and do is not bore everyone to death with statistics, but I just thought I'd throw a few in there just so people are aware of it, and then obviously touch on this new bit of legislation that's coming in that landlords might not be aware of, and then obviously talk to you about how you might be able to help anybody out there that then is worrying about what we've just told them, because obviously when I read these things in the industry press, I get worried. So This Is Money actually said that there are approximately 840,000 tenants in arrears at the minute, 7% which they think is due to COVID. And the London School of Economics in November said that this number could actually triple in the next 12 months. And obviously when you read things like that, you start to think, my God, this is troubling, especially if you're a landlord. And you know, maybe you can't afford to have rent arrears clocking up. I mean, one of the other sort of things that's come up is that we all know that we can't evict anybody right now, and there's a backlog of court cases. And I think the LSE, London School of Economics, also said that it could take to 2022 to 2023 to get to the natural conclusion of some of these cases. So when you sort of put all that together, it's a little bit worrying. I mean, I don't know what, from your side of things on the insurance side, you know, have you seen a massive increase in claims recently?
So unfortunately we had, really. And I mean, the bulk of the claims, unsurprisingly, came last year, when obviously all the sort of pandemic hit and the aftermath. And what the furlough scheme especially did is almost limit that, and has done to a certain degree. But with that coming to an end, with all the new legislation coming to an end, and with the backlog still not cleared, which is originally they thought it would be, it's putting everybody in a position which, one, leaves quite a lot of uncertainty for landlords and for ourselves and for everyone involved, really. Even tenants, the uncertainty around that's difficult to deal with. But also it means that the light is almost, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccine rollout, but it doesn't mean it's going to go away. And the problems that we've been facing for almost 12 months now,
I know,
which is scary, don't just go away because everyone's vaccinated. There's been a huge build-up over this time that needs to clear. And like you say, 2023, scary dates, and even that's an approximate.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you just like look at the logistics of getting a court case through court, not only sort of the hoops you've got to jump through now to get to court, but it's you know, there's a massive queue, and you've got to be a priority case. And you know, most of the situations that people are in are probably not deemed as a priority. I mean, another statistic, I like my stats, unfortunately. They reckon 18% of people in arrears are over £1,000, which, you know, to a landlord, that could be a couple of mortgage payments. And that's, you know, even before you take any action, there's that worry that, you know, that how much more arrears are these people going to get into. I mean, the other stark, I did not realise until I did a bit of looking around this morning, is that there's 9.9 million people on furlough at the minute. 9.9 million. I mean, that's a massive amount of people who at the end of April could potentially be out of work and be in a situation where they can't afford to pay their rent. I think there's about 4.5 million private renters. So it's a massive amount of folk.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that 9.9 million actually is higher now than it was this time last year. When the sort of, well, not this time last year, obviously that was before the pandemic, but when the pandemic came in, and people were going on
Everything's a
furlough.
blur
Yeah,
at the minute.
yeah, it is all blurry
What
now.
day is it again? Is it? It's Friday. Yeah.
It's higher now than it ever was before, and you think
Yeah.
that's scary. That is absolutely scary. It's probably not surprising when you watch the news and companies who have probably held off before, so Arcadia Group, Debenhams, and all those where they weren't making such big redundancies are now having to do so, and that is more worrying because we've made a huge fundamental shift from tenants who are previously just not willing to pay and didn't want to pay, but now unable to do so.
Yeah.
And that's a really big shift in terms of the mentality of tenants and the ability to, because before, with those who are unwilling to do so, you almost knew where you stood, you could potentially work with them, or, you know, we could come to some kind of arrangement. Those who aren't able to do so, that there is almost no light at the end of the tunnel to say to them, okay, your problems are going to be resolved by this date, let's get back to normal.
Yeah.
They're in a position, same as the landlords, and so it's incredibly important to protect both.
Yeah, I mean, and just sort of in addition to this, as happens with this industry, as you know, lastminute.com, you find out about other things that are creeping in, like we've talked about this offline, about this new breathing space legislation. Now, I don't know how many people actually know much about this, but I think this has been brought in on the back of the furlough ending, because it sort of seems to be a natural progression, because this is going to come in on the 4th, Star Wars Day, actually, weirdly enough, on the 4th of May. And I don't know if anybody out there knows what it's about, but basically it will allow tenants to approach a local authority or a debt charity and basically say, I can't afford to pay the rent because of X, Y, and Z. Now, they've got to justify that. But what it will mean for landlords, and this is the reason for sort of getting together today, I think, is that you will not be able to chase your tenant for any rent arrears for a period of time. Now, there are two types of breathing space. There's the standard breathing space, which is can't afford it. And I think you've got 60 days where you have a moratorium on your rent. But then there's also the mental health breathing space. Now, this one's a little bit, I mean, I don't know what you've read into this, but at the moment they're saying you have a moratorium until 30 days after treatment. Now, we all know everyone's mental health at the moment during this madness is at an all-time low, and is you know, there's a lot of people in a bad place at the moment. So, you know, from my point of view, I think that you know, there's going to be a lot of people that are in this situation and will be approaching the council, etc. But what on earth is that going to mean for rent if you cannot pursue anyone for 30 days after treatment? Because someone could be getting treated for years. I mean, I don't know what, from your side of things, there's any investigations as to the clarity of what they're saying at government level. It's just, I just like, what, you know?
That's it. Clarity from government level is always a difficult one. But you absolutely hit the nail on the head in terms of that. It seems to be something that was sort of brought in quite subtly and quite quiet, and
Slipped in under the radar.
It absolutely was. And so many people who I speak to, both letting agents and landlords, are still unaware that it's coming into effect and it's going to have such a huge impact. It's essentially taking the control out of the landlord's hands in terms of what they can do for their rent, and on the back of it, lenders are not going to automatically give landlords a break or a holiday because their tenants are part of this breathing space or have taken the breathing space and the advantage of it. Now, exactly like you said, the 60 days, maximum of 60 days for the normal breathing space, and then for the mental health, 30 days after treatment. But it's very difficult to say in terms of mental health treatment. And I am not an expert on mental health or the treatment of it. But it can run into years, and you could essentially be in a position there where you can't even contact your tenant about it because they are in this breathing space.
And then the other interesting thing was, one of the first things we said, well, if a tenant's got a guarantor, they'll be fine. It's not a problem. But then the issue there is if the guarantor also takes a breathing space, you can't approach the guarantor either. So we're sort of in this situation now where, you know, again, there could be rent arrears clocking up that landlords can't do anything about. So hence having the conversation with you today, because obviously from your point of view, what would you be advising landlords now to do? I mean, is there anything that they can do at this stage before this becomes law?
So, as you said, it comes into effect on 4th of May. So there is still time to act. And essentially what I would advise a landlord is to absolutely honestly look at your current situation, in terms of your rental income and what that means to you as an individual. Can you afford realistically to not receive the rental income for a significant period of time and not pay and still to continue paying your mortgage off? If you can do, great, you're in a fortunate position there. If you can't do that and you do rely on the rental income, you need the assistance in the same way that the tenants are going to be provided this assistance through the breathing space. Now, the best thing to do is to take out rental guarantee, rental protection, so that you can use that to fall back on. Hopefully it won't impact your tenant, but if it does, then you've got the peace of mind and the ability to continue operating how you usually do, living your life, especially if you're using that for personal circumstances, and getting that rental income on a regular basis.